Now, we're going to move on to another Legal 411. We've got the big elections taking place here in the state of Oregon and all around the country on November 4th. And to tell you about a couple of measures that are on the Oregon ballot is our own Paul Loney.
Thanks, Russ. Of course, we have the big two crime measures, 57 and 61, are on the ballot. 61 is mandatory minimums. They introduced, there's a lot of mandatory minimums right now in Oregon, but they put a lot more in for ID theft, heroin, ecstasy, meth, cocaine, burglary. No reduced sentences, basically mandatory minimum. Once you're there, you have to do your full time, which means no good time, which means you have no incentive to behave in prison. The cost is tremendous, $250 to $400 million per year, and that doesn't include the amount of money we have to borrow to build all these prisons, including probably they're thinking this passes at least one, if not two, new women's prisons, because women are the main people that they arrest and convict for ID theft, and so that's going to go way up, women's prisons. So that one, obviously, you know, we'd think it's a bad idea. So the next one is 57. It's the one that the legislator put on the ballot to compete with the Kevin Mannix 61. And it indeed has more mandatory minimums, but only for repeat offenders. It's not a one strike and you're out. There is funding for drug treatment. However, it's funding for drug treatment in prisons, which is more expensive than drug treatment in the community, even where a person's in a bed in the community. It's much cheaper. That's a way to do it. So again, I don't like 57 either, but the cost is a lot less per year. We still have to borrow money, not as much to build prisons because we'll build fewer prisons, and there'll be fewer women who are locked up. So there'll be fewer families who are broken up because usually the women in our society take care of the children, and what's going to happen when mommy goes to prison because she has a drug problem, and then nobody wants to treat her until she breaks the law. But if they both pass, the one with the more votes go into effect. And it'll probably be 57 because most of the media out there are saying vote yes on 57, no on 61. But personally, I say vote no on both. I'm not in favor of locking more people up just because they have a medical problem.
Yeah, these bills, they seem to keep coming up, and didn't this is a kind of an extension of what Mannix has done before with Measure 11, where it instituted these mandatory minimums, and now they want more of them. We're already spending more on prisons in Oregon than we spend on schools.
Yes, you know, and you know, the other side, they all claim that at the same time that when we put into Measure 11, crime rate dropped dramatically here in Oregon, but you look at elsewhere in New York State, for example, where they actually had fewer during the same time period. They had fewer people in prison, and the crime rate went down there as well. So there's no correlation between building more prisons and crime rate going down. It's just that until recently, you know, the economy is doing well, and everybody will tell you when the economy is doing well, there's less crimes.
This thing about the competing measures is also interesting, that you'd have two measures that address the same issue, and whichever one gets more votes is the one that goes into effect. Was this the legislature feeling like it was their only way to fight against Mannix?
It was. They got scared. They thought that people will vote, as they usually do, vote for strong prison sentences. In this culture, we think lock people up, throw away the key, and they were afraid of the cost of it. Again, we talked about it's a tremendous cost for 61, and so they thought, well, you know, we're afraid it might pass, but if we put something a little bit softer in there, that'll probably pass. And so in there, in 57, it says whichever one of these gets more votes goes into effect.
Wow. Let's see that neither of them pass. We don't need more prisons. We don't need locking up more people with drug problems. Now we're going to go back to the normal conference with some more exclusive video you're going to see. This is from the Pot and Politics panel, which took place on Saturday and featured the legendary keyboardist of The Doors, Ray Manzarek, talking about his first time getting high with Jim Morrison of The Doors and writing the song Moonlight Drive. This is exclusive on Oregon Normal Presents. Ray Manzarek at the NormalCon.
And I wanted to start by talking about music and pot and how they sort of have always coalesced. And when we came up with this book, I really wanted to get a lot of my first-time stories. People who are very creative, artists, actors, writers, to tell us about that, you know, that pivotal moment, the first time they got high, the first time they were inspired to write a song or to do whatever. And Ray, kindly enough, was one of those people who told me a fascinating story, which we won't go into because it's a little off topic, but about the first time he got high when he was in the Army. But then we started talking about the Doors, of course, because most of my college life was spent listening on the turntable and dozing off and zoning out on awesome music. And he told me this fascinating story about the first time they sat down to basically write a song, to jam, to get to know each other, him and Jim Morrison and the other guys in the band. So I wanted him to tell us the story live and in person because it was fascinating, and it didn't make it into the book because I had to keep to my very strict format of first time. But Ray, would you tell us that story, and do we have a picture?
Yeah.
This is an amazing photo that we sort of happened upon. We were looking for something to use on this page, and I was like, oh, could this be more perfect? This is in Venice Beach. Do you remember what year or around what time?
Somewhere between 1965 and 1971.
Okay. He can narrow it down to 5 years. We're doing pretty good here.
All right, 1968. All right, very important. Which year was that, Ray? I tell people, what does it matter? It's, especially at this end of my life, it's like years, days, they don't matter. Time is an ephemeral thing. Time is some sort of Judeo-Christian construct. That has nothing to do with smoking marijuana. Smoking marijuana puts you into a timeless state, or a state in which you are kind of revolving with the planet in its eternal rotation around the sun. We are in outer space. I don't want to make it spooky. Whoa, I'm scared, Ray. I don't want that to happen, but you like outer space? You're in outer space. 365 days to go around the star, 1,000 miles an hour, holding us down, gravity holding us down on the planet. Don't get scared.
You ever look at a $20 bill on weed, Ray?
What's that eyeball on me? That eyeball is looking at me all the time. Robbie said, "You're paranoid, Ray." I said, "No, I'm not paranoid. There's somebody behind there. There's a little cutout there. There's an eyeball in there. And about that pyramid. What is that? Who's that looking at me?"